I made a horror game in 1 week. Well, by I really mean we, and by horror game, I mean a vague type of underwater Slender Man type of game. So stick to the end to see how we went from this to this. This was also my very first time ever working on a 3D game, so a lot of lessons learned to say the least. But first, if you're new here, I make game dev and tech type of videos, and I've been working on my indie roguelike card game about wizards called Castlemancer that you should definitely wishlist over on Steam. But how did we get here? If you're new to the game dev sphere, there are events called game jams. A game jam is basically a competition-ish, not always a competition, but sometimes, where you and a small team build a small game over the course of a few days or a week, usually centered around a particular theme. And there are tons of game jams happening all the time from different game development events and creators. And there's a big game dev creator here on YouTube called Blackthornprod, who hosts a somewhat interesting flavor of game jam type of events. Basically, some amount of devs have to build a game together, usually around a certain theme, but with no communication between each other. And the project is just handed from the first dev to the next, and so on, until you really see what's on the other side. So one day I'm just chilling, maybe watching anime, maybe playing a video game, and I get a message on Discord, and it's from Blackthornprod. And after watching hundreds or thousands of hours of game dev YouTube, I already knew his videos. He asked me if I wanted to participate in a special edition of his Pass the Game challenge. I immediately thought, oh god, am I ready for this? I had to overcome my immense feeling of imposter syndrome to finally say yes, and he then sent me the project files. And if you want to see the full recap video from the other devs, definitely check out Blackthornprod's full video. This video, I'm covering more of my perspective and development since some stuff had to be cut down for his video. So I get these project files, right? And I'm instructed that I have 1 week to make whatever changes I want to the game before I have to pass it on. But I also have a full-time job, so that feeling of crunch time can definitely set in. There was also one key restriction for this challenge compared to the others. I have to spin a big wheel. And this wheel dictates what each developer should theme their additions around. So obviously I spin the wheel without even opening the project first and literally have no idea what I'm in for. Alright, Blackthornprod just sent me the build files for the wheel to actually spin the wheel to see what theme or function I have to add to the game, as well as the game build files. So we're gonna spin the wheel here. Oh, okay. I got the one thing I don't know what that is. So I have to add a Wendigo? One small problem is I don't really know what a Wendigo is. So that's the first step. Turns out a Wendigo is a supernatural being belonging to the spiritual traditions of the Algonquin-speaking First Nations in North America. And it seems like they are sort of illustrated as a skeletal deer type of creature. So this should make for an interesting addition. I got the project files and first impressions of them so far. The other devs did a great job. It seems like sort of a resource management collection type of game, where we are a scuba diver with a fixed amount of oxygen and we can dive to get different resources and sell them at different rates to different traders. And then we use the coins we get to buy upgrades to make us better at diving and collecting resources. There also seems to be like a fish betting type minigame and the ability to trade resources. And there's also this heat-seeking shark that just absolutely wrecks me. But overall, a nice tight little gameplay loop. Now, a mythical deer-like creature is gonna be a little bit challenging to add to a scuba game, but here's what I kind of went with. First, I literally have no idea how to 3D model, as all of my game dev projects have been in 2D, and trying to make an intricate mythical creature as my first model might take me too much time for the restrictions of this project. So I got this low poly Wendigo model from the Unity asset store to hopefully try to fit the visual aesthetic of the game as much as possible. Now, making it swim I thought would look kind of goofy, and I was getting a more ominous vibe from the other devs. So I edited the model just to be the top half and added sort of a miasma type of cloud towards the bottom half. I was trying to lean to more of a evil god type of character that slowly hunts hunts you throughout the game. So I used a resource system that was built by a previous dev to add an additional type of resource called offerings. Offerings always sell higher than the other resources, but when you sell them, the Wendigo God type character gets 1% faster. The Wendigo starts off ominously in the sky and very slowly moves towards the player. I also made it so that the head of the Wendigo is always staring directly at the player, which makes it feel a bit more unsettling. And if it reaches you, you instantly die. But I thought it was kind of an interesting add to the gameplay loop, as it's kind of a risk versus reward type scenario, or basically like how greedy do you want to be. I also thought it was kind of similar to this random Twitter meme where you can get like $1 billion, but there's an immortal, indestructible snail that will just chase you for your entire life. And if it touches you, you die like a horrific death. So kind of reminiscent of that. Some other quality of life additions I made to the game was being able to select how many resources you could sell. Before, you would automatically sell all of your current resources to the trader. With this whole new offering system, that didn't seem totally fair, so I created an interface where you can specifically choose how much of one resource you want to sell to which trader. Throughout the testing of this Wendigo implementation, I kept getting absolutely wrecked by this shark and had no way of defeating it. But instead of adding combat, which didn't feel like totally fitting the theme of the game, I added shark repellent to the upgrade store, which you can apply so that the shark will just avoid you while you have it up. I also updated the interface for the upgrades to give it a bit more polish, and I also added a pretty basic main menu as an entry to the game, and the ability to quit the game when you die instead of just having to Alt F4. And that's about when I ran out of time for this project, but ultimately I think it started to take a nice shape. I can almost see a vision of this game where it's like a resource extraction game like Escape from Tarkov or Helldivers, but kind of in a scuba setting, where every run you go out to a different part of the sea to extract resources, but there are these mythical or dangerous creatures that hunt you, and you have to extract before they reach you. I then passed the game off to Constellation Creative, which is an absolute fantastic game studio of a few people that really pulled the game together. They honestly added a ton of polish and storyline, and turned something that was roughly a proof of concept to something that's actually decently playable. So big shout out to them. You can find the game link in the description below. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but here is my reaction to the finished game after their additions. Much better than the state of the game I left it in. Yeah, the ambiance is just so much better. So much better. It actually feels like a proper game. Oh, I found the statue. Oh God. That's awesome that there's like a proper storyline with some background, given all the different features that we had to kind of randomly implement. Fish derby. I mean, overall, I think the game turned out like actually pretty well. Honestly, really big props to all of the people who worked on this and all the devs in Blackthornprod. This honestly turned out much better than I thought it was going to when I handed it off. So good solid job, everyone. So ultimately, what are some lessons that I learned from this whole experience? Because this was all pretty new to me, as I've never participated in a game jam or challenge like this before. Well, first off, it was a really great experience overall, and one thing I realized is that when you're given a project with existing mechanics and features and a limited time frame, you kind of just have to roll with whatever first ideas you have. I basically only had one day to truly dedicate to idea generation before I had to start adding features, which, although might not be a great idea for long-term projects, was a really fun exercise in quick and decisive thinking. And not to mention that this is literally my first time working on a 3D project, which helped me get out of my comfort zone a lot. I also saw in the comments of the recap video that some people thought the wheel added unnecessary restrictions to the devs and their creativity. And I can agree with that. It definitely introduced unique problems trying to combine all of these different mechanics. So while I do think this is kind of true, I also think it was just a fun challenge. Like, what other time would I have the opportunity or try to introduce the challenge of adding a Wendigo to a scuba game? Probably never. Also, we did a little meetup after the development with a few of the devs, and it was really cool to hear how they all approached problems differently and implemented their features. Overall, I think it was a really fun challenge and game dev experience, and shout out to all of the devs involved for helping create something that was very interesting and unique, to say the least. I definitely learned a lot. Thank you all for watching. My name is Michael. We do game development, computer science, career advice, tech type videos. If any of that does sound interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Also wishlist my indie game Castlemancer over on Steam. We do a Bob British accent at the end of every video. that's all from me. Hopefully I see you in another one. Bye-bye.